everybody has character archetypes that they tend towards, okay? Everybody has a type as it pertains to stories or anime or films or comics, books that you read and watch and listen to and all of the above, okay? And my personal favorite, I have realized through many arguments and conversations with my friend, is always the comedic side relief character. You know, we have Usopp from One Piece is my second favorite Straw Hat after Nami, okay? Zenitsu is my favorite character in Demon Slayer. I just tend towards the really silly, goofy side characters that we slowly learn to take seriously as the time goes on. And I think a beautiful example of this is Sokka from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Avatar: The Last Airbender, I feel like I can say this with my chest, is the greatest animated show of all time, okay? It is a modern day classic, and you cannot have a conversation about anything to do with TV and storytelling without somebody bringing that world up. It's amazing on so many different fronts. But I, as a result, watch Avatar: The Last Airbender every 3 years. And the last time I watched it was last year when I was going through an absolute crisis, and I thought, who's the only person who can help me out and understand me? Uncle Iroh. And so I went back and rewatched the show, and this time Sokka as a character and his character arc really stood out to me the most. I feel like a lot of people spent a lot more time talking about, you know, Aang or Katara, and of course, deservedly so, Zuko's character arc and Azula as well. And you know that very iconic, like the Azula video? I know we've all seen that video, okay? But I wanted to throw my hat in the ring and give you a conversation as why I think Sokka is the audience. Not the audience, but why I think Sokka is a very important character, particularly to the audience, and the message of redemption, hope, and progression in a way that the audience can find the most relatable. So that's what we're going to be talking about in today's Genius Nook. I'm going to be presenting my argument, okay? And now Sokka's character, in the midst of all of the crazy powerful characters we see in the show, feels very unassuming, okay? He is coming as comic relief in a team of super powerful benders. You have the Avatar, you have his own sister, which is like a prodigy in waterbending. You have Toph, like the best earthbender we have witnessed in the series so far, even including Legend of Korra, okay? And then Zuko, the Fire Lord's son, decides to join their team, okay? And throughout the show, he's often positioned as comic.
What? What is what?
It's a giant mushroom. Maybe it's friendly!
Let's just keep moving.
He's the person that gives us laugh. He's the person that feels very silly. He's the person that's like, hey, we don't really understand why you're there, but you make us have a good time. However, the show intentionally places Sokka as a journey and progression. And while I think Zuko's journey is one of character and path and belief, I think Sokka's journey is the one of realizing one's own talent and realizing his own ability to craft his own path in a way that other characters next to him cannot. And so let's start from point one. Let's actually establish what his character arc is in the first place. When we first meet Sokka, he appears to be cosplaying some kind of leader, okay? Chasing the fading image of his father as he attempts to act as a figurehead for the very decrepit, that's not the right word to use, is the falling apart Southern Water Tribe trying to piece itself together, okay?
Face a firebender. In the Water Tribe, we fight to the last man standing. For without courage, how can we call ourselves men?
I gotta pee.
When we first meet Sokka, he feels silly, extremely childish, filling in shoes that are ultimately extremely too big for his boots in an attempt to act as a figure for protection for his people. He is quickly thrown into positions where he has to humble himself, find the value of himself, and one of the greatest first episodes and examples of this is when they go to Kyoshi Island and fight the Kyoshi warriors, okay? He goes there on this island and they quickly get very attacked and ambushed by the infamous Kyoshi warriors. And now Sokka, with his inbuilt misogyny, was like, who are the brave, powerful warriors that took down my great and almighty self? Again, a moment of pure comedic relief.
Wait a second, there's no way a bunch of girls took us down.
A bunch of girls, huh?
Okay, and he is extremely humbled when he realizes the people that took him down was a woman. And now he responds initially being like, that's impossible. How can I be taken down as a woman? But he's instantly met with this whole, why can't a woman do this? You misogynistic pig, like, we bested you, we beat you. And in that moment, we see, I think, the true skill and gift in Sokka's character and why he's able to go on this crazy, amazing character arc is the fact that he turned around and realized, oh my God, I have made this massive, huge mistake. I am a horrible person. I'm weak and I'm dumb. I need to learn from someone. I need to learn to be better. And he humbles himself in front of the Kyoshi warriors and begs Suki in particular to teach him how to be better, to teach him how to be more powerful. I think right from the beginning, Sokka does feel very scared about the position he has to take. He sees himself as a default leader in the group because of his age, but you also can see that he's very intimidated about the quest that they're going to go on. I think other than him wanting to prove himself and become a more powerful version of himself, I think instinctively he also knows that he wants to be somebody that is able to protect his people, his sister, and the people around him that he loves. And he's not been able to do that quite regularly and quite often. Again, case in point, the experience of his mother. And so he swallows his pride. He admits that he's wrong. He even agrees to wear the traditional Kyoshi warriors getup in order to allow himself to learn from the Kyoshi warriors. And this being humble, being accepting of somebody being better than him serves him again and again and again during the series, okay? It shifts his perspective about more than being a warrior and a leader, more about a gender, a fixed gender ideal that he was probably taught from young, and more about skill and discipline, not just gender. And this is an important perspective shift that he has because it's really subtle, but it changes the way he interacts with Katara, particularly how he interacts with Katara's want to learn waterbending. And this is a very powerful moment because not only do I think it's, again, this is such a subtle thing, and I could be making it up, you guys can correct me, but I think through that subtle change in how he perceives women due to his interaction with Kyoshi warriors and how he now sees Katara's skill and ability and that interaction there, he is now more supportive and more willing for Katara to go on and learn waterbending. And that not instinctively, but that fills Katara with some level of pride and belief in herself. So when they end up getting to the Northern Water Tribe towards the end of the season and she's ready to finally learn waterbending from a master and they turn her away because it's not part of their tradition to teach women and that women are supposed to be healers, but she does go and learn and it's a powerful skill that she gains, but she also learns how to be a fighter. And I like subtly think that it's helped by Sokka believing in her and putting that faith in her and learning, and the shift from the Kyoshi warriors the episode. But still at this point he still does feel very silly. This is something so subtle, and because it's so early on in the season, we don't take hold of this transformative moment and explanation of Sokka's character and how he moves and learns. And it only becomes apparent as we reach the end of the series and then we start mapping these little pieces together. An episode where I do think that some people's perspective, if they are eagle and eyed enough about what Sokka's place is in this group, is the episode with Jet. Now, the episode with Jet, okay, I think it's a very important like side note because Jet means a lot to Sokka, representatively and like figuratively in meeting him and interacting him, because Jet initially represents being a powerful leader despite being a non-bender. And this is a complex that Sokka comes back to again and again and again throughout the series. What is his use? What is his purpose without being able to bend? Okay, and I feel like sometimes in life a lot of us confront and feel and have these moments of like, okay, what is my use in this workplace when I'm the youngest there and I have the least experience? What is my use in this relationship if I'm not making the most money, or, you know, all of these different things. We have a standard in which we think we should fulfill, and an image of what we think whatever version or part of yourself you are needs to be able to fulfill that version. And so we meet Jet, who feels like, oh my god, this is who I want to be to Sokka. And Aang and Katara are absolutely enthralled and in love with Jet. Okay, they love him, they think he's so cool, they think he's so amazing. And initially Sokka's like, wait a minute, actually, yeah, Jet is a cool non-bender doing these all amazing things, but there's something off. And initially they peg it down to jealousy. The audience pegs it down to jealousy. I'm like, oh, this is going to be another comedic relief moment again. But we get this moment where Jet is planning to basically flood this settlement. But this settlement, which includes people and also Fire Nation guards, from what I remember. My memory is poor, guys. The Fire Nation guards, and it's basically going to kill innocent civilians as well as destroy a Fire Nation camp. And Jet doesn't care about the innocent civilians because he just wants to kill as many Fire Nation soldiers as possible. And Sokka's instincts lead him to the discovery of this information, and he promptly tells Katara and Aang, we can't let this happen. In this moment, we also see that despite Sokka being flimsy and funny and ridiculous and silly, he has a very strong moral code. Again, we start learning little pieces of the thing behind the comedic mask. Okay, we learn that despite, you know, his hatred of the Fire Nation, despite the loss and the trauma he's faced at their hands, he will never sacrifice the lives of innocent people to overcome, you know, his enemy. And he is willing to play the long game to save people, but he won't risk their lives. And that is something that Jet is not willing to do. Again, this moral code, this ability to humble oneself, this trust of his instinct that he's slowly starting to develop really early on in the series is laid the foundation here in this Jet episode. We see many turning points where we begin to recognize his role in the group. For example, when he goes to the Northern Air Temple and he meets the really kooky mechanics guy, and Sokka basically creates so many different inventions that allow him to see his power in his ideas, his innovation using his science and engineering skills, and his ability to create amazing things. I mean, he figures out how to fly the hot air balloon. And although that then becomes a weapon for the Fire Nation, which is a larger commentary on like war in general, we're not getting into that in this video today. But again, he highlights his value to the team, audience, and himself, okay? To the point where from this point onwards, he's often dubbed as the ideas guy in the group, where all of these powerful benders in moments of confusion look towards Sokka for strategy, for help. This leader that he wanted to so desperately be, and how he was cosplaying this version of masculinity that he thought was needed to be a leader. He recognized that his actual value, his skills, his strategy, his ability to, you know, navigate certain situations is truly his value, okay? You know, we see him in the library in Wan Shitong's library, where he discovers the Day of the Black Sun. And if you think about the Day of the Black Sun episode, despite it falling apart a little bit, okay, we then see how his strategy and his invasion strategy did work. It just flopped because, you know, it got leaked, unfortunately, okay? Again, we see him fall into the role of strategist as time goes on. The ideas guy, okay? It sometimes becomes a pressure, but he rises to it each and every occasion because he starts to understand the value that he places in the group. I would be remiss all of these different little pieces and moments without talking about the sword episode, because I think the sword episode is the episode that the creators put in to hammer home the journey of Sokka's character arc from being this guy who's trying to fill boots, trying to cosplay a leader, to discovering his skills and honing his skills with people around him and his strategy and believing in himself, and even though he's shaky, to using that humility to learn and decide to have a skill. And so in this episode, Sokka's like, everybody is this cool, powerful bender, and I'm just the boomerang ideas guy. Like, what do I contribute to the table? And while his team and the people around him and even the audience don't necessarily see him that way, we begin to see how he feels inferior. And instead of just letting himself sit in this, oh, where is me? He's like, I think I should learn something. In fact, I should learn how to use a sword. And he goes and seeks out one of the most infamed sword masters in the Fire Nation. Somebody who is not willing to teach absolutely anybody, always throwing students to the wayside. And then he goes and he basically says, hi, I want you to teach me. And the swordmaster is initially like, oh, hell no, I don't teach people. But it's the humility that Sokka has shown time and time again to learn from people that are better than him. It's something he developed in the Kyoshi Warrior episode when he first meets Suki. We see his ability to learn and exchange and grow his ideas in multiple different instances and scenarios and circumstances. And this comes to a head when his humility is what allows him to learn how to use the sword. It's what gives him access to one of the greatest sword masters in the world.
And I know one thing for sure. I have a lot to learn.
You're not doing a very good job of selling yourself.
I know. Your butler told me that when I met you, I would have to prove my worth. But the truth is, I don't know if I am worthy.
And this is tough for him. He doesn't give up. He really commits. This is not something that he's natural at. This is not something that he's done through birth, okay? But again, another thing to say is that all of the skills, his ingenuity, his inbuilt creative ideas network is what helps him be creative and really good at the sword. He starts to, again, learn in his final battle with the swordmaster to be ingenious, to fight in ways that are creative, okay? To use your mind and to use all of the different skills, even while he's trying to learn a new one. I think this is one of my favorite Sokka episodes, and it then encapsulates the power of humility. Like, Sokka is a fun character to watch in the midst of all of the crazy stuff happening in the show. We love him for that. But again, I think he intentionally is, on comedic relief characters like Sokka, intentionally are a little bit of the audience insert. In the sense that I think of this as akin of, you know, the audience aren't powerful benders. They're not great, like, they're not Aang, they're not Toph, you know, they're not Katara. They aren't powerful benders. In fact, if we were plopped into the story, we are most likely to be a Sokka. If you take Usopp from One Piece, and I remember always like saying this to my friends when I was watching, like, even Usopp running away doesn't piss me off because I would do the same thing. I don't have any powers. He doesn't have any devil fruit. He doesn't feel like he has any particularly useful skills for a while. And if this big, bad, scary monster appeared in front of you, I would run away too. I think they reflect reactions that feel quite human. You know, in the midst of all of these scary monsters and crazy abilities and crazy skills, they represent something that feels the most real in an unreal fantasy world. And I feel like Sokka's character, again, is very amazing because number one, we learn this act of humility, which is something the other characters struggle with. I mean, Iroh it's season 2 when I think he's teaching Zuko how to redirect lightning, and he's like, pride is not the opposite of shame, but it's its source. True humility is the only antidote to shame. And Sokka is one of the very few characters who gets this instantly. He's put to shame when he fights the Kyoshi warriors, so he instantly humbles himself, and through that he's able to gain and develop, you know, real pride in himself and skills. You know, he humbles himself in front of the sword master. You know, he learns from all of these different pieces and collects all of these different pieces of information as he goes along. That's not to say Sokka's perfect. He makes very many mistakes and he doesn't always make the right decisions, especially when he's interacting with other people. But then again, we are seeing like the true embodiment in the show of that like phrase that Uncle Iroh always says. And I again think that, you know, the ability for Sokka to, you know, demonstrate that level of humility can be learned from us. What can we learn from the environments that we put ourselves in? What can we learn from our failures? How can we go about trying to make ourselves become better people? It's not about being born with this inbuilt talent that allows us and progresses us down this certain path. It's about using the skills that you have. How can you best contribute to helping the mission that you have found yourself on in life in any capacity? I also think comedic relief characters are really interesting because they are often like devoid of lore and legendary status. For example, Aang or like Zuko, for example, they almost have very prefixed destinies. And you can kind of tell that by the way people talk about them. You know, Aang, your destiny as the Avatar is this, and this is the path that you're supposed to take. Aang actually goes on a sequence of a very prefixed path. He learns the elements in a certain order. He does things in a certain way. He can seek guidance from all of the past avatars before him. Even Zuko, as he's still finding and learning about what it means to be him, it does feel like, again, this path was predestined. It's prefixed. I mean, Uncle Iroh even says, you know, this is your destiny. You need to pick your destiny. And it almost feels like this deterministic path. Whereas I think Sokka represents this free will almost, this ability to choose what path he wants to take, what role he wants to play in the story, how he wants to go about playing this role, and how he wants to be remembered. And ultimately, whether you believe in destiny or not, I think a lot of us are that. We get to decide how we want to show up in the world. We get to decide the stories that we want to create and consume and read, and how we want to best serve the world and make the world a better place. We decide what role we play in a friendship group, what role we play to the people we interact with every day. We can decide to pick up a skill and how we want to work at it, whether we're naturally inclined for that skill or not. Sokka represents trying hard, humbling ourselves, and allowing yourself to lean on your natural skills and to grow them, but also to not be afraid to branch out and exercise your larger talents. Again, I can say the same example from Usopp from One Piece, Zenitsu from Demon Slayer, and all of my favorite comedic relief characters show this spark of humanity and this level of imperfection that I think other characters that are big and powerful and strong, that are shrouded by all of this lore and are empathetic, and you know, they have these grand moments. In these really subtle moments, I think Sokka teaches us really well how to be a very good human, especially when you are not the main character for whatever reason in the story in your life, you know? And I love that about Sokka. Anything else I want to say? Obviously, the Avatar, The Last Airbender, the adult self movie has come out, and I didn't mention anything to do with that in this episode because I have not watched it, and I am not watching it until it officially comes out. This is a personal choice I made because I kind of wanted to respect how the people that created the movie and the show best want their products to be consumed and their art to be consumed, and I can hold on tight. But that Zuko edit, I have seen it. And I saw that Zuko edit and I was fighting for my life. I'm still fighting for my life. So yes, I'll see you guys. I think next one is definitely going to be a comic book one. I might do a double whammy. I'm getting into a routine as it comes to the video. Any other announcements I need to make? I'm going to be at Comic-Con London this year. On the Sunday, I'm doing a small workshop about world building. It's going to be so fun. So if you're coming to Comic-Con, please stop by. I'd love to meet some of you guys in person and to talk and yap about all of the stuff that we do on Genius Nook. Okay, guys, I'm thinking of doing bloopers. I recently have been DJing on that stupid DJ like iPhone app. I'll insert that blooper here. That will be the blooper. That will be the blooper. Okay, bye guys.